Good day, students. Today we'll be going over products. What is products and how can we simplify these questions when they're given to us, right? So products relates to multiplication. Products and multiplication is basically the same thing. But in this case, it means these brackets times together, multiplied together, right? So we have x plus 5 times x minus 7. So we have to multiply these two brackets together. We can't add what's on the inside because here we have a variable, here we have a constant, and we can't add these two. And before we do that, we should familiarize ourselves with a well-known method, which is called the FOIL method, which is called the FOIL method. The F The F stands for firsts, O stands for outers, I for inners, L for loss. Now we have x plus 5, x minus 7. Which one of these come first with respect to their brackets? X comes first here and x also comes first in their respective brackets. So this one is the first, this one is also the first, right? And then we should look at the outers. This one is on the outside as well. And also minus 7 is on the outside. So we're going to put an O underneath. Then we look at the inners. The one closest to each other. I like to think of it that way. The ones closest to each other. So 5 and x are closest to each other. Are closer to each other. So we have I there for inners as well. And then we also have loss. The ones that are lost in their respective brackets. It's this 5 and it's also that 7. So we should multiply the ones that have the same wording above or below each other, right? So the x and the x both have the first, so it's going to be x times x plus x times negative 7 plus we're looking at the I now for inners, which means we have 5 times x. I feel like the x's are gonna confuse you. We're just gonna put a dot there. Just gonna put a dot here as well. The I, that's for the inners, it's 5 times x plus 5 times negative 7. Now we should go and multiply these. Now x times x, it means those are two x's. Now it's going to be x squared plus x times negative 7, that's negative 7x, plus 5 times x gives us 5x, plus 5 times negative 7, that gives us negative 45. And you should be careful. The ones that didn't have a negative, I didn't put a bracket. I didn't necessarily put a bracket around it. The ones that didn't have a negative in front of them, the terms that didn't have a negative in front of them. But the ones where like a negative was involved, I put a bracket here and there because we know that this is going to change, right? So let's continue. X squared. Why is this going to change? A positive and a negative make what? A negative. So we have a negative minus 7 plus 5x, positive and a negative, that gives us a negative, right? And then we're basically done, right? It's just a matter of simplifying further on now. Now this is x squared. A minus 7x minus 5x, That gives us what? Negative 12x minus 45. And that is how we solve, well, simplify products. We use the FOIL method. We always use the FOIL method. And let's go ahead and look at a second example. Let's go ahead and look at a second example. We are given 2x plus 1, x minus 3. What do we do first? We mark our first. This one comes first in this bracket. The x also comes first in this bracket. We look at the outers. This one's on the outside. That one is also on the outside. We look at the inners, the ones closest to each other. The 1 gets an I, the x also gets an I, and then the loss, which is the 1 and the negative 3, right? And what do we do moving on here? We multiply the terms that have the corresponding wording. So the first is here and it's also there. So it's going to be 2x times x. The dot stands for multiplication. And then we're going to go to the outers, which means it's going to be 2x times negative 3 plus we're going to have 1, which which is the I, going to have 1 times x plus 1 1 times negative 3. And then we go ahead and simplify that. 2 just remains here, then it's x times x. That gives us what? X squared plus, keep in mind, now there's a negative involved, which means I'll want to put this in a bracket. So it's going to be 2 times negative 3. Take note, the numbers multiply each other and the variables multiply with each other, right? So it's 2 times negative 3. What does that give us? Negative 6. X plus, like I said, the numbers multiply each other. In front of this x, we know that there's an invisible 1. So 1 times 1, it gives us 1. X plus, there's a negative, so I'll want to put that in a bracket. So 1 times negative 3, it's negative 3. Then we go ahead and simplify. A plus and a negative gives us a negative. Plus and a negative gives us a negative. So we go ahead and simplify that again. So that's 2x squared. Now we should look for like terms. Like terms. X squared is not the same as x. So we can't add minus 6x to this. That is not the same thing. But x and x over here, they are the same thing, right? So we can add both of these to each other. So it's going to be minus 6 plus 1. That will give us minus 5x minus 3. And we are done with this one. Let's go ahead and look at the last example that I have for you guys. And now we have 3x minus 1, x plus 2. We apply the same thing over and over. We have the first here, we have the outers here, we have the inners, the ones closest to each other with the I, and we have the last ones with the L. Then we multiply the ones with the corresponding wording with each other. So the first multiply with each other. So it's going to be 3x times x plus, we go with the O. So it's going to be 3x times, which one has an O? It's the 2. 3x times 2 plus the i's. We at the I now, minus 1 times x plus minus 1 times 2. We go ahead and simplify that. That gives us 3x squared plus 3 times 2. That gives us 6x plus negative 1 times an x. That will give us a negative 1x. See, I kept the negative inside the bracket. I haven't let it loose out yet. I have a negative 1 times 2. That will give me a negative 2. We go further. 3x squared plus 6x. A positive and a negative gives us a negative. Positive, negative gives us a negative. And then we have 3x squared. Again, look at like terms. X squared is not the same as x, but we have two x's that are the same here. So we can add them. So 6x minus 1x, that will give us 5x. And then we have minus 2. And yeah, just to recap, we asked ourselves, what does the product mean? It means multiplication. Multiplication of two brackets, essentially. Well, in this case, multiplication of these two brackets. And what do we use? What do we use to solve this kind of question? We use the FOIL method, right? And we write down our given expression, and then we mark the first ones. We mark the outers, we mark the inners, we mark the loss, and then we multiply the ones with the corresponding wording. And then after that, we just simplify. And if we have a negative somewhere, we keep it in a bracket because we know that it's going to change the whole expression or sum along the way. Yeah, and that is it for today.